Hello and a huge warm welcome. My name is Lorraine Davies and I am the host of this summit, The Expansion, Unleash Your Infinite Potential and Reclaim the Power Within. I'm so thrilled to be joined by the beautiful Katie Kozlowski today, who is a master energy and embodiment coach and the creator of the Shakti Balm method, which I'm sure we're going to be talking about later because I'm like thrilled to learn more about this. So she helps smart, spiritually driven, and highly motivated people create big breakthroughs so they can create more of what they want by connecting to their core beliefs, needs, and desires. And I mean, could you be a more perfect fit for the topic of the expansion? I am so thrilled to have you with me, Katie. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. So I would love to start with a little bit of a bit of a background on you in terms of your own expansion and whether there were kind of core breakthroughs that got you to this point where you are today.
Sure. Well, we could start as soon as a few days ago. There's always, you know what, it's funny. There's always layers and there's always lessons. And I feel like it just keeps going and going. So I say to people, do you want the saga? Right? Do you want the Lord of the Rings trilogy version or do you want the Cliff's Notes? Because there's so much that has happened in my life. I could spend hours and hours and hours sharing the vast multitude of experiences that have shaped me and brought me here. But the one thing that always stands out, and I have a tendency to kind of gloss over it. And then people are like, wait, what did you say? So actually now 14 years ago, every time I do these interviews, it's funny. It's like once upon a time, it was 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Now it's 14 years ago. I had literally, it was September, I want to say like September 21st, 14 years ago, I had this big life-changing moment. I was walking home from work and I got hit by a taxi. And it was a massive life-changing moment because one, I was hit by a taxi, right? So that's a big deal in itself. But two, it's an experience that continues to unravel actually, because for a while there, I thought I really understood what had happened. And now it's another perspective. And I'm like, well, it was that, but it was also this, but really it was sort of like the culmination of a lot of the struggles I'd been having in life, like coming up to that moment where I basically walked in front of a moving car and was like, well, whatever, doesn't matter. No one cares. I'm done. And I did not obviously die. I wasn't really hurt. I pulled this like Wonder Woman superhero move where I rolled on the hood of the car and I did a barrel roll and I popped up and I kept walking. Like I managed to navigate it in such a way that I wasn't hurt, but obviously it really kind of shook me up because I had spent so much of my life feeling a certain way about myself. And it sort of brought me to that moment of like, wait a minute, something's not making sense here because I'm a good person. I'm a kind person. I'm a loving person. I'm a talented person. And these bad things, this shouldn't be happening to me. So that was sort of the beginning of it where I decided I got to figure this out, right? I got to figure out why this is happening. What's happening. Do you hear Leia in the background? I don't know why my cat, she's decided to join in this conversation. She's in the background going, brr, brr. She's like serenading us. But that was really it, right? That was the sort of point that really kicked off this whole journey for me.
Wow. I mean, that in and of itself, as you say, is something that you've glossed over when you kind of just go, yeah, I just got hit, casually got hit by a taxi. But I think, as you say, it's how it sticks with you and how it has enough of an impact for you to go, right, something has to change. So
Right.
when you kind of had that epiphany moment, you were like, right, something has to change. What exactly was it that kind of had to change? Like what was not okay in your life?
Right. Well, at that time, I had this realization of the first reaction was like, okay, I hear you, God. I'm not treating myself as if I matter, right? Like I'm not taking care of myself and my gifts. I was an actress, singer, I was in New York City, had a lot of stuff going for me. And it was like, okay, I gotcha. I'm not treating myself with respect. Understood. Okay, let me go take care of that. But then the funny thing is, part of this whole thing was I was dating this guy, and the guy had stood me up that night. And that was sort of the thing that led me to that like level of devastation. I know it sounds crazy. Like, how could a guy standing you up leave you feeling that destitute and devastated that you would, like, just walk in front of a car? I know it sounds insane and it doesn't make sense, but at the same time, I hear from people often that they struggle with such devastating self-worth and having such a hard time breaking patterns that it's a real thing. Like, this happens a lot to us and we're so hurt. And so what ended up happening with that was, of course, he showed up and was like, oh, I fell asleep. And he gave me all these bullshit stories. I did not break up with him. I did not. I like let it go, as I often did and still have a tendency to do sometimes, like, oh, he didn't mean it, blah, blah, blah. And then a couple of months later, it was my at the time, my 30th birthday, and he was just absolutely atrocious to me that night. And that night, my family saw it. And it was one of those things where once my family witnessed me allowing myself to be basically like abused by somebody in front of them, that was what really got me to change. Because the day after that, my birthday, I saw my mother and she was like, look, you really don't deserve it. You deserve so much better than that, right? And I said, yeah, I do. And then my sister's partner at the time showed up and she said to me, she said, because she was a big AA person. So I don't know, depending on where you are in the world, here in the US, there's Alcoholics Anonymous, or there's there's AA, and then there's the place you go if you were in a relationship with someone who was an alcoholic. And I had a lot of alcoholics in my childhood. And she said, maybe you need to go to AA, like maybe you need to go get some help because you have no self-worth. Like, you have none. And I really felt that. And I felt it so deeply that I'm like, she's absolutely right. I shouldn't be letting people treat me like this. And I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And then she mentioned a poem that it's called There's a Hole in My Sidewalk by this woman named Portia Nelson. And it's, I don't know if you've heard it. A lot of people might have heard it, but essentially the gist is there's a hole in my sidewalk. I fall in the hole. There's a hole in my sidewalk. I see the hole. I fall in the hole anyway. There's a hole in my sidewalk. I see the hole. I try to go around it. I fall in the hole anyway. And then the end of it is, there's a hole in my sidewalk. I see the hole and I walk down another street. So that was the change, right? That was the change I needed. Was I need to learn how to walk down another street, right? I need to learn how to actually change so that I don't keep doing the same thing over and over again, because it's obvious to me that I just keep doing this. And the really devastating thing that I saw, that even to this day, I have been breaking apart for myself, because, when you got your stuff, you got your stuff. And we're here, like, it takes a lifetime sometimes to really master this stuff. I really couldn't understand why I kept walking into hurtful situations and just like being okay with it. I kept getting hurt. The other person didn't get hurt. He was fine. He didn't care. He just did what he wanted. And I had bent over backwards and done all this stuff. And that's something that I really, really didn't like. I didn't like seeing it about myself. And what I really didn't like was that other people saw, like, it was okay as long as I could cover it up, right? If nobody knew that I was doing it, then it was okay. But when people witnessed it and they started to point it out to me, then I had to really do something about it, because then I couldn't hide it anymore. You know what I mean? And I think that was the big change. Was I didn't want to live the rest of my life trying to cover up something that really didn't need to be there in the first place. If I could just learn how to walk down the other street, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes radical sense. And I think it all stems from, you said, you kind of mentioned earlier, it's so much about the worthiness piece. And I think no matter who's watching this and wherever you guys are, as you said, in the world, they could be, you could be anywhere. The reality is this stops people at so many points in their journey. And, what Katie shared here is obviously very, was a pivotal moment way back, which kind of set her on the path she's on today. But you can witness it, in incredible people who seem externally to have all of their shit together, and actually there's still these habits or these underlying patterns that can be traced back to this self-worth piece. And I think
Yeah.
it's such a juicy topic for us, because when we're talking about expansion, I truly believe that everything starts on strong foundations, a strong foundation of self. If you don't have self-love, have a strong sense of self-worth, self-trust, these pieces, they're like the cornerstones of this expansion process. So, you know, when you're sharing your story, Katie, you're sharing this, as you say, you know, like you had to choose a different path, you had to take a different route. It takes a huge amount of courage to firstly recognize that what you're doing is not working, and then it takes another whole different level of commitment to then change these patterns.
Right.
So
Yeah.
obviously you've changed so freaking much since that time, and you've grown and you've expanded into the beautiful mentor that you are today. So in terms of this growth, that expansion piece, that growth, you've had these moments on this journey, but what is it that you do in your kind of your day-to-day practice, in your own work, that helps you to further expand into your potential?
Yeah. So I just made something today. I'm going to grab it. It's right here. I'm going to show you part of how I do this and how this works. So I'm a big fan of creating tools, right? Strategies to support your growth. And I'm just because I just made this today, and I'm like, I love it so much. I'm so excited about it. So I don't know if you can see. Oh, it's sort of like hard to see it because the blur is on. You can't see it. I could turn the blur off, but that would be complicated. Or no, it wouldn't. Hang on. Let me turn it off just for 1 second. See that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I have the blur on because I have a cat and she likes to dance in the background. I'm trying to save us distractions. But so you've had a chance to see it. This is just an example. So what I just shared with you is one of my practices. So what that is, that's your everyday journal, right? That's a part of my altar. That's a place where I go and I sit and I process. But what I've done is I've sort of anchored it with an energy that I know I want to create. So something that I like to do, and I like to teach all my clients and students, which I now call my co-pilots of curiosity, by the way. I don't call people clients and students anymore. If you work with me, if you're in my program, you're my co-pilot of curiosity. It just sounds more fun.
That. It
It's
sounds
fun,
so
right?
fun. Yeah.
Because we're learning, we're curious, right? We're journeying together. So you're my co-pilot of curiosity, but I teach all my co-pilots different ways to sort of connect with the feelings, the energy that you want to feel every single day. And so it's part of my practice in the morning is to sit and to actually connect with it in different ways. This just happens to help for me because it's a visual, I call it a like a mood board, right? It's a visual representation of who I am. And when I see it, I'm reminded of it. I'm excited about it. I'm like, oh yes, I must sit down and do my morning ritual, my morning practice, because that is what I want. Some of the things that it says there: embrace new beginnings, the book of me, creative journey, starting again, that's the sort of stuff that really helps me stay connected, because that's how I expand, right? I expand through my connection, through my curiosity, through my desire to grow, through wanting to learn more about myself. Those are the ways that I've navigated all the challenges. When I forget that, I get frustrated. I get mad at myself. I don't want to do my morning practice. I just sit there like a sad person, like, nobody likes me. Oh, well, and then I end up stuck in the place where I was that night. It's amazing. Even though I've done so much and it's been 14 years, I can still remember and feel that, it doesn't ever really go away completely. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe now that I really got it, I will be better at making sure that I don't allow it to sort of slip back in. But I still have moments not as often, but I still feel that way. I can still catch myself and say, there she is. There's the woman that was so devastated and heartbroken that she actually walked in front of a car. Like, I can still catch myself. So I I do these practices because it allows me to just build the like, I want to use the word muscle memory, right? Like, it builds the connection. It helps me remember who I really am, not who I used to be. Do you know what I mean? All of these different things. And I just wanted to show you that was like my little my craft, my craft for today, but also an exercise I give people as well because it's fun. You know, so I try to find
100%.
fun ways to connect, create, and writing, meditation, movement practice. All of that boils down to nervous system regulation. You know, there's actual reasons why we do it, not just because it's like, I like to create things. I love to create things, right? Of course I do. But for me, when I'm in a state of creativity, that's because my nervous system is feeling good, right? When I'm frozen, I can't do anything. I don't create, I shut down. So I got to nourish and nurture myself, right? I got to remind myself why I am who I am every single day so that I keep being me instead of being like, oh, well, I'm stupid. You know, like, that's the way I used to talk to myself.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
And you're so right, that has to be, it becomes a habitual process. It's a practice.
Right.
And it's that layering of that practice over and over and over and over and over and over again that builds you into, or molds you into, the woman that you're always becoming. So, you know, when we talk about this expansion process, and it can feel very like a lofty term, like, you know, expansion, like, I want to be this person over there, you know, that's so much more than I currently am. And actually, you know, this has come up a few times with speakers. It's the baby steps. It's the consistent action on these tasks and these playful activities and this nervous system regulation and this journaling, that all these things that remind us of who we are at a higher level and who we're destined to be, if we choose to follow that path rather than let our humanness get in the way.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, then there's all the really fun, cool stuff that I do, you know, like, something that I will do is eventually, and this is something I teach people to do too, is I will take what I just shared with you and I will turn that into an energetic hologram, and I will, you know, I'll be able to create expansion and transformation in really cool ways with this tool that I've created. I call that the Mary Poppins technique, which basically means I'll take the energy of what I just what I did by creating that journal and by writing inside of it, and then I'll take the whole vibration and actually create something that I can embody, that I can actually step inside of and download. And, you know, those are more advanced. That comes later. I don't do that every single day, but it is really interesting because I have often come up against these questions of, so, you know, I'm not a very serious person and I teach creative practices, and, you know, I trained as an actress, first of all. So my background is in telling stories, right? My background is in playing a play. It's called a play for a reason, right? It's like, I learned how to create so much of what I do. So many of the sort of frameworks as well, they overlap, because when you're developing a character, you're doing a character study. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no difference between doing a character study and studying yourself, right? It's the same thing, right? There's no difference than building a character study so you can step into that character. That's not any different than doing a character study of yourself and designing your life the way you want it to be and stepping into it. Do you see what I mean? It's like the same thing, but a lot of times, and I had a lot of issues, like self-esteem issues around this, because I was like, well, I'm not a neuroscientist, and, you know, I'm not a therapist, and I'm just you know, someone who's studied the art of creation for the last, you know, 40 years of my life, because I was performing as early as 6 years old. You know, I've been in that arena for so long, and voiceover and all of these different things. And it's just funny because you can see the themes, how it all comes back to the same thing over and over again. It's like, if you don't really value yourself and love yourself and respect yourself for who you are, it's really hard to carry forward in the world and create what you want, right? Because you don't really own it. And if you don't own it, that's what you're talking about, right? The foundation to love yourself, accept yourself, believe in yourself, trust yourself. When you have that, you can go out and you can create all this incredible stuff. But if you're shrinking or beating yourself up, I know all about that, because I do it too. That's how I figured it out, right? I'm like, oh, all this like, acting like I don't know what I'm doing, or like, pretending that I'm not smart, or whatever it is, all the stuff I used to do to sort of I did anything I could to not actually be who I am, if that makes sense. It was like, anything, I'll do anything but be me, right? And that's a horrible, horrible way to live your life.
It's horrible, but
Take
I
it from
think
me.
there's so many people who are doing that, because ultimately it's like a safety mechanism. All the time you're not truly being you, that you can't be criticized for who you truly are at your core, and you can't have people not like you for who you truly are, because all the time you're putting on a front and you're pretending to be somebody else. If they don't like you, they don't like that version of you. It's not
Right.
your true self, right? So we all know
Right.
so we look at that and we know that that's a safety mechanism. And when you talk about this piece of, like, valuing yourself and everything, this is ultimately, that is the starting point of all of this, because you are so right. And when you talk, it's so, I love how these parallels come out, right? I love how, we are completely other sides of the world. We've literally, only known each other for a few weeks on social media. And my background's musical theatre, and
Oh,
you're an actress. I was like, okay.
oh,
And
well,
then I
that
was
was
like,
my, I
wow.
mean, that's what I went to school for, was musical theater. So I did, the Broadway circuit. That was my thing.
I love it. And then you're talking about the self-worth piece, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is literally so many similarities there, because what you share about how you were, I think, especially having come from that performance industry, I think there is a lot of putting a mask on, right? Because actually you want to you're showing up as, as you can show up as really confident. And I think you see this in the online world as well, guys. If you're watching this and you're thinking, you see other people online and they seem to have all their shit together, and they're, some people are genuinely just putting on a front. That's not who they truly are. They're putting on this confidence front, pretending that they've got their shit together, pretending that everything's okay. Well, actually, they haven't underneath the surface. And there's a big difference between playing at having confidence and playing at having self-worth and feeling, and self-trust, and actually truly deeply feeling it at your core. Because I think it's like a crumbling. If you haven't got those pieces in place, you can, whatever it is you're going out to try and create in your expansion, building a massively successful business, going out and trying to look for the love of your life. If you haven't got this piece in place, it's just gonna everything's gonna crumble
Yeah.
underneath you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, everyone has the terms, right? So imposter syndrome, or blah, da, 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 people have all these labels and names for things, but I've seen that even in my own life, where I've had very successful things happen, big launches, but I can speak. Book a big TV campaign is what I'm trying to say. Book a big TV campaign. Obviously, it's like I can't even talk about it. That didn't even happen. It did. So, there were times when I got these really big jobs, right? And I was like, wow, I'm making $150,000 off this holiday campaign, whatever it is. Super excited. And then go to tell somebody, wow, I'm doing really well. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you should, so, don't talk about that stuff. Don't tell people that you're doing a good job, because you're going to make them feel bad. And, all the talk comes in, and then I fold in on myself. And then I'm like, no, wait, I actually don't want that. I don't want to be successful. And the thing that I found, that really comes into play, like how it's happening, is I was talking to someone yesterday, and I said, listen, you can't want two things at the same time, right? I mean, you can, it's possible, this person wanted to lose weight. But basically she was like, I want to lose weight. I want to lose 80 pounds because I want to be able to be open to have a relationship and a love life and all this stuff. And I can't have it if I don't lose the weight, but I don't want to get hurt. And if I get in a relationship, I could get hurt. And I said, okay, so, you can't want to lose weight and not want to lose weight at the same time, right? Because these are two opposing desires, and that's called cognitive dissonance. And that means that there's two different parts of you that want two different things. And what happens? And she said, the stronger one wins. And I said, yes, the stronger one wins. So right now, your fear of getting hurt is greater than your desire to lose the weight. So you're paying me all this money and you're not even doing it because you're scared and you don't actually want to let yourself have it yet. So we need to figure out why this is more powerful than this. And then we need to rebalance the scales here. We need to make sure that your desire to lose weight is greater than your fear of getting hurt, right? We just have to sort of rebalance the programming. And it's really interesting because it accommodates for so much of the the ups and downs that we experience in life, right? Success, not success. People call it sabotage. But I just look at it like breaking the patterns, right? Breaking your cycles and figuring out where do you really want to be? And also understanding that when you do that to yourself, it's really interesting. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I have to regulate my nervous system. It's it's this, it's that. It's actually really quite simple. If we can figure out what the different, the two opposing forces are, and we can figure out why these two pieces don't agree, and we can create a new balance for you and either get agreement or get the other one stronger, then you can actually keep moving forward. That's going to actually regulate the nervous system, right? That eliminates the spikes, the fight, flight, freeze, all that stuff. Because I actually don't think, listen, I've been doing this for like a really long time now, and I have a nervous system, and sometimes my nervous system reacts in certain ways because I'm human and I have a life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I just
yeah.
feel like, like I'm always putting this is the thing. Like I look at my childhood and it's like, oh my gosh, what was the source of all my trauma? Do you want to know what the source of all my trauma was? I did a lot of stuff that I probably wasn't ready to do because I was curious, because I wanted to know what would happen. So I dug around, I got my hands in a drawer, I pulled the thing down, TV hit me in the head, finger got chopped off, got rushed to the emergency room, 2 years old, super traumatized, jumped in a swimming pool before I knew how to swim, almost drowned. You're like, all of these things I've done. And it's funny because it's like my nervous system, it's all the trauma, right? But I only did that because I wanted to experience life. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to know what it was like to do these things. So when I look at love right now, and I think about this, like, oh, I'm never getting in a relationship again because I don't want to get hurt. There's always a piece of me too that wants to protect myself. But then there's that other part that's like, yeah, but you won't ever have what you want if you stop, like, unless you stop doing that, right? You have to be okay with the fact that whatever you did that got you in trouble was because you wanted to learn. That's why I call people co-pilots of curiosity, by the way, because I want you to be curious. I want you to try stuff. I don't want you to be scared to try stuff. But it's interesting because even me trying to figure out, okay, so what is my trauma? And like, how do I break the patterns? And da la 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 la. At the end of the day, it's really simple. I am someone who, in my nature, I am quite bold and courageous, right? I actually have a ton of self-esteem and self-worth. I get mad at myself because when I do it, sometimes people don't like that. Some people are like, she's full of herself and who does she think she is? And blah, blah, blah. How dare she? And in the past, I would go and be me and then go, uh-oh, wait, did I do something wrong? And then my nervous system would. So how do I fix that, right? Well, I can't change me because I am by nature curious. I'm here to expand. Do you know what I mean? So much of all of this comes back to you have to be willing to basically accept yourself for who you are and understand that, like, the fight, flight, or freeze, right? Your nervous system's gonna it's gonna do stuff. We need to learn how to ride the waves and surf and be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to put myself out there. Somebody's probably not going to like me, and I need to have a plan of action so that I can move through that instead of let it stop me like it always has.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's the piece there. Is I think, you know, so many people, I feel like there's, you can have people at different ends of the spectrum, right? People taking all of the action over here, but never doing any of the actual healing work. And then you have all these people who are so caught up in this healing journey that they're not taking any freaking action.
Right.
And actually, when it comes to this piece, which you've just talked about so eloquently, is that ultimately that, you know, that nervous system piece is about, it's almost, I like to think about it as building your resilience to this process, right? Every time we lean in, every time we do that thing that makes us uncomfortable, every time we put ourselves out there, you are building your resilience. You are building your ability to cope with that feeling. And actually, it's that feeling, it's being able to kind of sit with that feeling and be like, yeah, I'm all right with the fact that people aren't gonna, not everyone's gonna like me. Because the reality is, you can't expect to go out and build a massively ridiculously successful business, or to have, you know, everything that you want in your life without accepting there's going to be people out there who don't like you. There's going to be people out there who are going to badmouth you. There's going to be situations when things don't go according to plan. And ultimately, our responsibility essentially is to go out there and play anyway, regardless of that. And just with an understanding, as you said, you know, that understanding that you're going to feel like this.
Right.
But you've got to learn to be okay with that as part of this expansion process.
Right. Yeah. And then the other part of it is also, I teach a lot of sort of the tools, right? So the tools that help you kind of process, help you really understand yourself, because at the same time, like for me, in my ability to learn how to do this, I also had to really understand, okay, so yeah, people aren't going to like me or whatever's going to happen, but I also need to figure out, why am I so obsessed with that one person, right? Like, why, what does that tie into? And then that ties into my own stuff, right? My own lessons of self-acceptance and trust. And, you know, it roots back into the strength. So I always teach, especially in I have this group program called Metamorphisis. That's where the journal that I showed you, sort of the mood board vibe and stuff, that's all inside that program. And I did it because we just finished a cycle. And so we were doing some of our completion exercises, but it was like, you know, I think it's really interesting for each one of us to take a really good, honest look at ourselves and understand. I mean, there's a lot of things that I do that really don't help me along the way, right? Like, you know, it's like, why am I worrying about how many likes a post got? Why am I worrying about like how many people signed up for somebody else's class? What does that have to do with me? Right. So it's like understanding, one, yes, there's going to be ups and downs. Not everybody's going to like me. And also, this is an exercise I give a lot, which is the things that help me, things that hurt me, spreadsheet. And I ask people, okay, give me a list, right? Like, what are your behaviors? Because this is behavioral stuff, right? It's like, what are you doing every single day that's making it harder for you to actually be who you are? Because, you know, we're doing it and it's weird. Like, I would do it. I don't know why I do that. Why do I do that? I don't know, because I want to make sure that nobody's doing better than me. Like, what is the motivation? So that's an acting thing again, right? You always ask, like, well, what's your motivation? I ask people that all the time. What's your motivation for this, right? Why do you think you do this? What are you trying to get? And it's like, somehow I'm trying to build more security and confidence by making myself feel shittier about myself. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that is not helpful. You're not building more confidence. You're tearing yourself down. But for some reason, I used to be convinced that like the more I basically like tried to like protect myself by knowing all these things, all I was doing is reinforcing the shit that I didn't need to worry about. So like that was a behavior that I had to let go of. And part of that fed into the nervous system. Then I'm like, why is my nervous system like burp, 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 burp? I'm proud. I'm not. I'm proud. Well, maybe if you didn't spend so much time comparing yourself to other people and worrying about why somebody didn't come back, or, like, if you didn't do that, maybe you'd have a lot more time to feel good about yourself, and then you go do the stuff you want to do, right? This is me talking to myself, because I'm a human and I do it too, and I walk the walk and I talk the talk. So I don't teach anybody a process that I don't actually do. So I'm very real with myself. I'm hold myself accountable. I know my shit. I know my bullshit, and I know it. And it's like, hey, listen, lady, I see what you're doing. I know you think that it's going to make it easy. Like, it's going to protect you in some way. You think this is helping. This is the very thing that is making you not feel good about yourself. Would you cut it out? And finally, eventually, right? Like 14 years later, I'm like, okay, all right. Okay. You're right. I'll stop. It took me 14 years though, which is
I
okay.
know. And so there's a couple of things there, because I think so often as well, when we're talking about this kind of this work, it sometimes feels like, oh, we're adding all of this stuff in. And actually what's so important about the process is all the stuff we're taking out as well. It's like, well, if I stopped doing that behavior, if I stopped doing that thing, actually this would make the process easier. But understanding and having like a huge amount of acceptance and forgiveness for yourself in that process, because as you said, like, there's going to be things that have hung on in there for years that you've been gradually, like, chipping away at, and finally you just like it just you just one day you just turn around and go, oh, I'm not doing that thing anymore that I've been doing for the last decade.
Yeah. Or you finally get it. You finally see why it's not helping you, like it all of a sudden is like, oh, wow, I get it. Fixing things for other people doesn't allow them to change. Okay, I get it. But that's kind of the way it works, because you have to stick with it, and you have to keep this is one of those things where I drive myself crazy sometimes, because I I really don't I get frustrated and I get sad, and I feel down in the dumps sometimes, but I'm like the most annoying. I'm like the honey badger who never quits. I just like I'm relentless in terms of like, no, I am going to figure this out. Like, I really do love myself so much, and that's the sweetest thing for me to be able to see. And I think we all do, right? If we're invested in our growth, it's because we love ourselves. It's because we want to get better. It's because we know that we're worth more. And do we get it right away? Not necessarily, but that's the whole point of it, is you have to keep coming back. My mind was blown when I was doing a training program. I was working with this lady, Jean Houston, who's just amazing. She's like 87 years old now. And she's like prolific. She's written like 24 books, brilliant woman, all about creativity and human potential. But I was doing a program, and I said something in one of the email exchanges we had where I said, like, I just like, I'm so scared I'm going to get it wrong, right? Like, I'm so scared that I'm going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. So I do nothing, right? It's like, I just wait, and I'm like, oh, but what if I make a mistake? So I'll just do nothing, right? Which is not good, because then you do nothing and you get nowhere and it stinks. But I said, it's like, I'm scared to like make a mistake, and somehow it came around to sinning. And this woman, her business partner, said, the origin of sinning, first of all, it has nothing to do with religion. It was a term for archery in Rome, when they were teaching the young boys how to be fighters, right? They would fire the arrows. Now, if you fired an arrow and you hit the bullseye, you hit a bullseye. Now, if you fired the arrow and you missed the mark, that was called sinning. Oops. You let your arrow go, you didn't hit your mark, just try again. That was the point of it. Sinning meant you didn't hit bullseye. So you have to sin to learn, right? It was like, oh my God. So I have to make a mistake. Like, it's okay if you make a mistake. Sinning is about like, you let the arrow, like, that's how you learn to get a bullseye. That's how you nail it. So I just feel like that in itself was enough to help me understand why, okay, this is why, withholding and waiting and doing it in my head and not taking action is for the birds. Because if we don't actually consistently release and expand and try something and try something and try something new, right? We have to be in a state of growth, but you don't grow if you're so attached to the outcome that you're too scared to try, right? And it's like, I think so many of us are standing on the precipice of that, like that thing that we know we need to do, and we don't do it for a multitude of reasons. We've talked about a bunch of them here: the fear of getting hurt, the this, the that, the not wanting to make a mistake. There's a million reasons why we don't do it. But we have to kind of come to terms with the fact that, okay, this is called purgatory. This is called hell, right? This is called insanity, where I'm doing the same thing over and over again. I'm getting an idea. I want to do it. I want to expand so badly, but I'm not going to because of this, this, and this, and this, right? And then you go, and then you feel bad about yourself, and then you want to expand, and then you don't because of and it's like, just cycle. It's the worst cycle to be caught in, I think. It's just like, I know, because I was stuck in it. It was terrible.
It's that for me, when you talk about that cycle, and I've been in it too, it's the frustration with yourself, because you're like, there's this deep inner knowing. I always talk about this deep inner knowing that, like, you're like, I am so freaking capable. Like, I can be and do and so much more than this. So you've got that deep knowing inside of you. It's just, when you were saying this, I can literally imagine, like, so many people on this call, like they're like literally holding the arrow around your back, and you've got all this energy here. It's all caught up in holding yourself back, rather than, all you've got to do is let it go, and that arrow will fly. Whether it hits bullseye this time round, or whether it just goes further up the field than it is right now, whatever you do, it is progress. And I think that's where we really have to, there's got to be so much that, change that happens. I definitely think, I look at the education system, especially in the UK here, where we've got things, and I think there's this I learned that's fear, the fear of failure at that point. Like, don't get things wrong at school. Like, that's wrong. Red mark. Like, red mark. And actually, what we want to be doing is understanding, that's just because that's our conditioning, we can actually choose to give ourselves a green tick, like, well done, like, you freaking took action, you moved towards the thing that was scaring you. And in understanding that, success or failure is not a linear process. Each failure, each learning each lesson we learn, each step along the way, we are moving towards what we want to create. So it's just that reframe, isn't it? But I love that literally that story, and that, like, idea of everybody standing there holding their arrow, like,
they're all like,
I don't want to
and imagine like if you were like in a battle and you really needed to like let your arrow go and fight or whatever. It's like, how terrible. Like, you would die. You would die right away. That's the point of all of this, I think, is that there's all these different ways, right? There's embodiment, there's nervous system regulation, there's mindset work, there's lots of different ways to get to it. But the thing that I've always been really interested in is, okay, so we need to figure out the specifics of why we're not doing it. And everybody's is different, right? Everybody's trauma is different. Everybody's like defense mechanisms are different. It's the way you sabotage yourself that we really want to understand, because that's the thing that needs to be resolved. That looks different for each person, but the concept of being stuck in a loop or a pattern, that's not right. That is the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome, which is why I love the idea of expansion and the quantum field, because breaking patterns is one thing, but okay, so how do you break a pattern? Well, you got to get outside of it. And what better way to do that than to access the quantum, right? Because the quantum is not inside the problem. Einstein, like, you can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. So we need to get outside of ourselves. We need to find ways to access the quantum, to to get into a different groove, to, you know, get into a different mindset, whatever it is, that's the point. And then that's sort of what I think what expansion really is all about is, instead of living your life like you're in a straitjacket, right? Taking your straitjacket off and flapping your wings and saying like, I'm free, right? I can move. I can like do what I need to do to get where I want to go. I feel like we've been talking for a long time. Have you been watching the clock? I have not.
I'm watching the clock. Don't you worry. We're all good.
Okay. I'm like, because the reason why I asked that, because I have a tendency to like, I could do like a 5-hour interview and I would not know it. So that's why I'm
I
like,
can
okay,
feel you.
I talk a lot. Okay. I don't want to bore people to death. But which isn't possible, I know, because I wave my arms. I'm pretty entertaining. But you know, it's that though. It's that whole idea of needing to get yourself to another place, another perspective, another energy, something that can help you break the pattern, right? Something that can help you break the cycle. It's taken me until, I don't know, maybe like last week, where it dawned on me, where I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Because this is the whole thing is helping people break patterns is an art, right? Like helping people break patterns is an art, because there's all of these different, it's very complex. There's nervous system, there's brain, there's trauma, there's this, there's programming, there's, you know, there's a lot of stuff that has put you in whatever sort of groove or mentality that you've been living inside of for as long as you have. And it is complex because it's a lot of different things that made it. And I just feel like when you start to understand how you actually get yourself out of that, it's almost like I had a woman go through Metamorphisis, this program Metamorphisis, which is we're doing the, you know, Shakti Balm is inside that program. And she said, I feel like I always felt like I had this knot, like I had this knot in my life and I couldn't figure out what it was. So I would always like try and cover it up. Like I would like, you know, like try and find ways to avoid it, or just like, you know, mask it or whatever, so nobody would know that I had this knot inside. And I didn't know what to do about it. But when we went through the process, she said, I feel like I was able to like get outside of myself, understand the knot, and then get inside the knot. And what I learned was how to actually unknot myself from the inside out. So I was able to move a little piece here and a little piece there. And that was like the best feedback ever, because I was like, son of a gun, it works, right? Like we did it. Because I think that's the hardest thing, because everybody wants to be unknotted by somebody else. You know, they're like, can't you just fix this for me? Right? Like, can't you just give me the answer? No, I can't. I cannot give you the answer because I'm not inside you. Okay. I didn't live your life. I'm not inside you. I can't get inside you to unknot you. Okay. Don't ask me, because I can't. I don't have an answer. But what I can do is I can show you how to like Harry Houdini yourself, right? So you're living your life all mangled and tangled. I can show you how to unknot yourself. That I can do, right? That's easy. That I know inside and out. But if somebody's like, can't you just give me the answer? I'm like, I don't know the answer. I really don't. You do.
And also, I also think that when people are asking for that, when people are like, Katie, fix me, there's a certain amount of disempowering themselves in that process.
Oh, totally.
Actually, like when we recognize that, yes, we might not know how to do something, as in we need a mentor or a coach to guide us through a process to be able to do this thing. But when we take responsibility for doing the work, for doing that unknotting and that unraveling and all of that process, actually, by virtue of doing that process ourselves, we become empowered, and we start to recognize, shit, I can do this for myself. I am so freaking powerful. I just needed someone to hold my hand, to ask me the right questions, to guide me through the right process in order to get to this point. you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are so
It's
right. Me and
amazing.
you could chat for freaking hours. I could
That's
be
why I
here.
said, like, how long
So
have we been talking?
that
Because sometimes I'll talk to somebody and it will be like 2 hours later. Oh, oh my
no,
gosh, I'm
it's
so sorry.
you are absolutely fine. Do not apologize. Oh, and there's so much juiciness in this. Everyone's literally going to be hanging on the edge of their chair. They're like
Good,
sitting here
good.
like,
Well, we can,
ah,
oh, well, there's always more. There's always
there's,
more, right? So,
there's always
come
more.
back for
Exactly. So
more, friends.
exactly. So I feel like we are kind of coming to like the rounding off kind of point, but I know that you have so much to share, and I'd just like to ask you whether you've got any kind of final leaving messages or kind of last sharing points that you want to leave before we round up today.
Well, I feel like we bounced around a lot of different things, right? I mean, we learned the history of sinning and how to break patterns and all of these different things. And it really is, at the end of the day, sometimes that sounds overwhelming, right? All of the different pieces. And I think that when you really start to think about it, coming back to that solid foundation, I always just explain it to people like, listen, you're a tree, okay? You're a tree. We want your roots to be really strong and healthy. The more we water the roots, the taller you grow. So when you start to think about what to do when and how, like, don't worry about the leaf over there right now. Worry about your roots, right? Focus on your roots. Focus on yourself. My astrologer taught me that years and years ago. She said, listen, love yourself, nurture yourself, focus on yourself. And I got it, but I also didn't get it. And then it took me a long time to really understand why that's important. And that's why, because you grow in both directions, right? You grow down, you grow up, you grow wider. Expansion comes from depth, I think, right? So the stronger your roots are, the more you'll be able to expand. So if you ever feel like, oh, I'm doing all this stuff and it's a waste of time, sometimes even people will go through my programs and be like, I did all this amazing stuff and I know it's incredible, but I'm still scared that it's not enough, right? And that's terrifying to me, because I get it, because I feel that way too sometimes. Wow, I just help people break like major life patterns, but that's not enough, is it? And I'm like, you're cuckoo, okay? You're cuckoo. It's amazing, right? We're all amazing. And the more you root deeper into who you are, seriously, the easier life gets. Like, it really does. Because then you got the strength.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Katie. So if people want to come and find you, learn more about you, come and play in your world, where is the best place to come find you online?
Well, my Instagram is probably one of the best places. So I'm sure my handle will be linked somewhere. It's my name. It's at I am Katie Kozlowski. So you come find me. Also, if you do find me, pop in my DM, say hello. I always, connect with people there. And then my website. So I'm sure that'll also be there. It's just my name, Katie Kozlowski. Not just, it is my name, katiekozlowski.com. And lots of goodies there. That's the other great way to find me. There's a contact me button. I make it very easy for you to find me, and I love hearing from people. So if you're interested, do not be shy. Just reach out, say hello, say, I'd like to learn more, whatever it is. And I'm gonna, I will respond in a very nice way. Just like this. It'll be just like this.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Katie. It's been an absolute ball chatting with you today. And I know that everybody watching will have had an absolute ball too. So thank you so much for your time and your energy. And for everyone watching, I will speak to you soon. Bye for now.